So we have section 13 here, which is the persuasion of advertising. And what I've decided to do, and I'll let you know, I'll also go over this in class on Tuesday, but looking at the number of slides that I had a lot of slides for advertising, so I've decided that I'm going to break it into two parts. And so section 13 is going to be the persuasion of advertising, the first part of that. And then what we're going to do with section 14 is we'll call 14 the second half of the advertising material. And what that'll do is that'll push things around. You'll still have the same number of quizzes and everything else, but if you look on the syllabus of the original syllabus, it says that we'll do advertising, then social media, and then popular music. We're probably going to kill off the popular music lecture and replace it with social media, because I'm going to take actually two days to go over the advertising stuff. So hopefully I'll be able to revise and you can see the updated syllabus soon, but I just wanted to let you know we're going to cover half of this in one lecture and the other half in the next lecture. So the syllabus as far as the schedule of things will be off, but just still go by the number sequence. So this is 13, the next, just prepare that as 14, and then let's see, that'll be 14, 13, 14, and then 15 will end with 15, which instead of popular music will be social media. So let's talk about the persuasion of advertising. A main goal of an advertiser is to persuade us to buy their product over their competitors, right? So that's what advertising is supposed to do. It's supposed to not just make you want to buy a product, but there's so many competitors out there in the market that good advertising wants us to buy their product. And so much of marketing is actually just about brand and promoting your brand, convincing people that your brand is the right brand out of all the products available, that it should be their choice to purchase their brand, that particular brand. So how do we do this? Well, first we create product recognition. In other words, when you see the brand, you need to be able to say, oh, okay, I know what that is. That's that box of shoes, those are Nike shoes. And I know what Nike means. I know what Nike has represented throughout time. So you want people to recognize what your brand means, also be able to recognize it in the store. So you may have creative packaging or something that you've done so that, go to the aisle of a supermarket and just glance down. There's so much stuff, so many colors, so many things on those shelves that whatever you can do to make yours stand out just a little bit more, that helps with product recognition. You want to be able to differentiate your product from the competitors. In other words, you want to be able to tell the consumer, here's why you want our brand. So not just here is our brand, here's how you recognize it, but here's why it's better than everyone else. So it's getting them to kind of fall in line with an ideology of why one product would be better than the others. Another thing you can do is associate the product with things we favor. So think about things that people find pleasing and comforting, and that they want to invest time in, things that they favor, and make your brand something that's associated with that. And then finally, you want to ensure that people can recall the product. So you're going to repeat the ad to them several times. No one just makes an ad for one presentation. They make an ad so that it can be presented to people over and over and over and over again. Well, the reason why they're doing that is because they want you to recall. When you go to the store, they don't want you to think, oh, what was it that I wanted again? What did I need? And not be able to bring that up. They want you to say, yep, that's right, I need to get soda. And I want to get this particular brand of soda. So they want you, that recall is all about memory and putting things into your memory. So how do we create product recognition? Well, you can do it through a trademark, a symbol, either a visual symbol or a verbal saying, a motto, a logo, a catchphrase, whatever, that tells the consumer who makes the product, right? So you have this trademark, this visual thing that makes them understand what the product is. Sometimes, though, what you have to worry about, and this is kind of the danger of advertising and marketing and branding, is that you're always fighting to be number one. And you would think that if a product is number one and was consistently number one, that your job as an advertiser would get really simple, right? If everyone loves your product, then trying to persuade people to continue purchasing the product doesn't seem that daunting a task. But you got to remember, not only are you always trying to fight off competitors that want that number one spot from you, but also if you become so big and so popular, sometimes you can do what they call, you cannibalize yourself. You know, you cannibalize the brand cannibalism. So what does that mean? That means that you've become so well known, so famous, so favored as the brand in that particular product category, that the name itself starts to supplant the product name, really. I was trying to think of the best way to say to come up with words for that, but the example is Kleenex. If someone says, "Hand me a Kleenex," would you necessarily check the box to make sure that it says Kleenex as a brand on there? Or are you just going to reach for the nearest tissue that you find and give it to them? So what's happened is Kleenex has become so well known as a brand and so preferred over so long that Kleenex kind of took over any kind of meaning for the product of facial tissue. You know, I'm looking, let's see, at a box in front of me right now, actually, that is a box of tissues. And I say, well, give me, you know, if I was to tell somebody, give me a Kleenex, they would probably hand me a tissue from out of this box. But as I look at the bottom of the box, and I'm trying to see if this is actually a brand that's owned by Kleenex, but I don't think it is. So this product that I'm looking at in front of me is Puffs, Puffs. So it's Puffs tissue, but it doesn't say anything on here about it being owned by Kleenex. So I could say, hand me a Kleenex, and somebody would reach for this and give it to me. But it's not a Kleenex. It's Puffs. But I probably wouldn't care. I'd be happy. Why? Because when I said Kleenex, I really didn't mean specifically the brand Kleenex. That's brand cannibalism. You've become so well known and your name has become so unique that it has started to be a replacement for anything in that product category. TiVo was the same way when digital video recorders were first invented and marketed and sold. Q-tip, the same thing. If I said, hey, do you have a Q-tip? And someone handed me something that wasn't specifically Q-tip brand, as long as it was a cotton swab, I probably wouldn't care. I'd probably be totally happy, right? I got what I asked for. But that Q-tip is a brand name, right? Brands are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They surround us all the time. And they surround us from birth. We start learning brand trademarks just like we start learning language. We can recognize those symbols. As early as 2 years old, people can recognize brand trademarks and symbols, colors, shapes, things like that. So, is naming important? I just kind of explained that sometimes your naming is very important. And that, if you get so popular, your name is going to represent every brand in that product category. name's also important because you got to think, and this kind of goes in hand with what I was saying about once you become number one for so long. Once you become number one in a product line for so long, one of the first things you're going to try to do is widen your market, right? Okay, well, we're beating competitors in this area, and we are doing that consistently. How do we grow? How do we grow the business? Well, expand your market, right? And so you'll see that big brands will go global, or brands that are overseas will try to come into the American marketplace. So when that happens, you got to remember that language is a system of symbols, right? And that the language that you're thinking of in your country is not necessarily the same language that will be used in another country. The spelling's different, the grammar's different. Certain words may have slightly different meanings. And that's where we tend to invest time into phonologics, this art of pairing an agreeable name with an object, right? So you want to be able to sit down and think, if I have this product, what's a good name for it? And maybe in America or in English, it's a great name, but when you try to sell it overseas, the name just doesn't translate well. And what I've got here are examples of products from other countries that tried to put English into their product line in terms of how they package and market it, and the English just doesn't work. For example, the first one, baked chunk. It's a cashew cookie or cracker, okay? But, you know, baked chunk just doesn't sound very appealing. P colon. It's a peanut cookie. But P colon reminds us of, you know, digestion. We really don't want to put peanuts and digestion together when thinking about a cookie, right? There's more favorable things we could do. And also you see the little snippet down below. It's P colon, then up under it says, Peanut Boy, wish you have lucky day and your wellness. So this is a product line that just did not translate over very well. Let's come back to the sausage in a second. This drink that's green called fart. Okay, well, of course, yeah, that's not something we'd like, right? But these are all actual products; they actually exist, right? And then the sausage. If you think about this, it's called homo sausage. And in our heads, in English culture, if you just abbreviate the word homo and just leave it at that, it tends to have a negative connotation, right? It's a slur that people used. But if you think about it in terms of what they're telling you this product is, it kind of makes sense. Homo sausage. Think about what sausage is. It's ground up meat, right? It's meat that's ground up and put in a casing. Now, sometimes in some factories, some markets, what they would do is they would combine different animal meat, right? So they would mix pork and chicken together to make their sausage, or beef and pork together to make their sausage, right? And some people looked down on that and didn't like the fact that they were mixing animals. They wanted everything to come from the same animal, right? Which is to say the word homogeneous, the same. And so that's what this sausage is representing. Homo as in homogeneous sausage. It's all from the same animal. It's all beef or all chicken. We have the same exact thing here in the United States. If you go to the grocery store and buy hot dogs, you'll see some hot dogs just say hot dogs. And then some will say all beef Franks, right? Same concept, just not translated over well. To differentiate your product, to make it stand out and separate from the others, you need to have a unique selling proposition, right? So what is a unique selling proposition? It's a claim that differentiates one ad, one product from another. It's very important now that we have markets that are just flooded with competitors. If you look at cell phone companies, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, all these companies, they provide you the basic same service. And in fact, in a lot of these, they're providing you the exact same product. AT&T can give you an iPhone just like Verizon can give you an iPhone. And those iPhones are going to do the exact same thing. It's just that you're using different carrier networks. So the carrier networks then have to devise some system. How do we market ourselves? How do we brand ourselves? How do we convince people to buy our product versus other competitors? So AT&T, when cell phones were first starting out, they had this concept of the rollover minute, right? If you didn't use all your minutes per month, they would roll them over to the next month, so you would have even more. In other words, you weren't wasting your minutes. Verizon, for a long time, has claimed to have the largest network, so your cell reception is better wherever you go in the country. That's their unique selling proposition. Goody's headache powder I talk about. So Goody's, it's aspirin just like almost any other aspirin, except they've gone ahead and they've crushed it up into a powder so that when you ingest it, it gets into the bloodstream faster, right? You take your powder, mix it with some water, you down that glass of water. Just as fast as water gets absorbed in the body, the Goody's gets absorbed into the body, right? So it gets absorbed faster than a regular aspirin, a regular pill. So that's their unique selling proposition, faster relief. Only problem is sometimes your unique selling proposition can be recontextualized. In other words, sometimes that unique thing about you turns out to be a bad thing. Goody's headache powder, yes, it does give you faster relief if you mix it with water and drink the glass of water. The problem is a lot of people were taking Goody's headache powder the wrong way. They weren't using water. They would just swallow it dry. After a period of time, there's this interesting little medical case where they started seeing men come in with ulcers in their esophagus and claiming that they were having trouble and difficulty swallowing and pain. And it turns out what was going on is they noticed that a lot of these men that were coming in, middle-aged, older men, that they seemingly had similar professions, long-distance drivers, right? So truck drivers, and they would ask them, what are you taking, and they would all have Goodies come up in their list of medicines that they take. So what they figured out was happening was these men were drinking it without water. They were just dry swallowing because either they didn't have water in the car or they didn't want to stop and get some water. So they just downed it dry. And aspirin itself can be very harsh on your stomach and any kind of digestive lining. That's why they told you mix it with water, dilute it, right? It gets into your blood system faster, but it's safer. It's not concentrated as it's going down there. And that's the same thing with taking a pill. If you take a pill at any given time, that pill is dissolving, so you're only exposed to so much of the chemical. So it was Goody's unique selling proposition that was actually causing the issue, right? And so then you got to worry about, okay, well now our product, the great thing that we said about our product, turns out it's harming people. And you got to figure out as a company, what are you going to do at that point? Participation is important in advertising. So why is that important? Well, it can help us with recall. And I'll explain why. Participation is when you're viewing an ad and you're kind of forced to pay attention to it. That's participation. and that's exactly what the word means. The company making the ad is hoping that you're participating in creating the meaning or disentangle the meaning of the ad. So what's happening is you've got a funny advertisement out there that makes the viewer kind of think about the joke, kind of untangle the joke. Because we're giving the viewer pause to either figure out the joke and laugh about it, or maybe it's just something in the ad that's just, it's weird. It says there's something a little off in it. But that makes you remember the ad. That's participation. You're involving the viewer in the creation of the ad's meaning. By doing that, an advertiser can increase the likelihood that the viewer identifies with the experience portrayed in the ad. Right? So we let them disentangle the meaning of an ad, and that makes them give focus and pay attention to that product name. There's several different ways we can do this, and we'll look at some of these videos in class. You can employ double entendre. So if in the ad you're saying something, but what you're really doing is implying something else, and I like to use the example of Brooke Shields in the early 80s doing the Calvin Klein commercials, probably the best use of double entendre in an ad campaign. Or using questionable grammatical construction, so saying something in the ad that is not how you would typically say something in real life. So it's making you say a phrase or some combination of words that really you would only use in that ad. You wouldn't say those things normally in society. Double negatives in trademark slogans, something like that. Other ways participation can occur, you use humor. You get somebody to laugh at the ad, right? Oh, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. This is my favorite ad that's coming on. Let's pay attention, right? Why? Because it's funny. Humor allows the viewer to participate. Sometimes there's misdirection. So, you're watching an ad and it seems to be unfolding a certain way, and then they kind of throw you for a loop, and it's funny how they did that. But it's just causing you to stop and pause for a little bit and figure out what that humorous thing is, or what that weird thing is, right? What's off just a little bit, or what's really funny a little bit in there. Advertisers want to associate the product with positive experiences, right? So that's one thing that you search to do for your ad, is you want there to be positive things in that ad that people say, ooh, I like that. I like that experience. I like what it's trying to tell me, what it's trying to give me. So sometimes the problem is that it may be a product for something that isn't necessarily thought of as a positive product, right? Feminine hygiene products. It's very hard to construct an ad for feminine hygiene products. Why? Because the act of any kind of hygiene, people kind of don't want to talk about, right? Do you stink? Well, wear this. Does your deodorant stink? Here's new underarm deodorant. You can think of anything that really is not associated with a positive experience. So, hemorrhoid cream. How do you produce an ad? How do you make an ad campaign for hemorrhoid cream? People don't want to admit they have hemorrhoids, much less how do we fix them? Yeah? How do we take care of it? So what you have to do is you have to say, well, they're not. Actually using this product is not something we favor. So if we're going to do ads, let's just put other things that people favor in there. feminine hygiene products. Well, the point was to be clean. So what does it show you? It shows you things that are fresh and clean. Fields of flowers, a brisk morning on the beach, you know, being sailing out on the water. I've got some commercials that we can see that try to take advantage of this, right? They try to show you people having a good time while they're pitching their hygiene product. So Mentos just kind of used to directly have this ability in their commercials, where the literal kind of narrative of a commercial for Mentos was that a person would have some kind of problem or dilemma. Oh, the copier is out of toner. You know, what am I going to do? I don't have any toner. And then you would pop a Mentos, eat a Mentos, and think about it for a second, and then some magical solution would come about, and you'd get exactly what you want. And so they were just directly saying, hey, Mentos will make everything better for you. Air Jordans, they make you a better ball player. Why? Because there's an association between the shoes and arguably the best basketball player in history. And so people say, hey, well, if these shoes are endorsed by Jordan, they must be good shoes because he is the best. So you'll get that. You'll get associations with celebrities, authorities. So sports stars, you know, I want to be like Michael Jordan. Authorities, you'll get people like Alex Trebek or Sam, I can't remember his last name, but he was the original lawyer for Law and Order. These are just two characters that I see all the time. Now I'm seeing Tom Selleck, right? Tom Selleck is trying to sell you on buying a reverse mortgage. Well, why do we use him? Because he's this likable guy who was at one point a sex symbol, and now he's kind of viewed as this trusted older man, you know, that's not going to steer you wrong. He's done a lot of cop dramas and played a lot of policemen in his life, and so there's this kind of condition of authority that he exudes. And so if he's pitching a product in a commercial, people think, oh, he's legit, therefore this product is legit. Other associations is associating things with the past and nostalgia. And I've been using the word cannibalizing a lot, but that's actually the term for this, is cannibalizing the past, or just straight out nostalgia, where you make something seem like the good old days. Old Country Time Lemonade. This is their kind of strategy, always has been, is they always talk about good old-fashioned lemonade. Right? A lot of us may have never had good old-fashioned lemonade or didn't have it regularly, but you know, we're made to believe that it would bring us back into our childhood. It would make us remember favorable things from the past. Sometimes people will talk about it's just like mom's apple pie. Okay, well, my mom didn't really make apple pie that much, but I guess I understand what you're saying. Finally, when you're making associations, you can try to exploit social movements. So if you look at women's rights right now and the Me Too movement that's going on right now, the topic is still kind of sensitive, but I guarantee you before much longer, someone will come out with a product that tries to take advantage of the Me Too movement and tell you, you know, now that women are standing up more for their rights, here's the product that women deserve. This was done in the past for Virginia Slim cigarettes. Virginia Slims was a tobacco company. I forget which company it was, but they already made cigarettes that were popular. But someone told them, you know, at one point in the 60s, women are starting to smoke less. So we need to figure out how to recapture that market. So they made these cigarettes that were supposed to be skinnier, longer, more dainty, as they claimed. And so those Virginia Slims is what they called them. Since they were targeted mostly to women, the commercials took advantage of that, and it used what was a popular women's suffrage statement in the early 1900s. "You've come a long way, baby." And that statement was to say, hey, remember when you couldn't vote? You can now. You've come a long way, baby. And so that was the tagline for Virginia Slims. You've come a long way, baby. Not just social movements, but nationalistic associations. So how many products do you see that are sold that have some kind of patriotic tie-in to it? They're using patriotism in the commercial to make you associate that product with good old America, good old USA, right? But we're not the only country that does that. Canada's done it when they try to sell things that they're well known for, maple syrup, for example. Labatt's and Molson breweries, they tried an ad campaign for a while called "I Am Canadian," in which they were trying to convince people that Canada wasn't such a bad thing. Canada's a pretty good country, and so their beer's pretty good too. And they're unique. There's things about them that make them unique, and so they were selling, Molson was selling, its beer and reminding people, hey, be proud to be Canadian. Be proud to have a product from Canada. After 9/11, we saw some people trying to take advantage of this patriotism. This next statement I saw on a billboard not long after this patriotic surge after 9/11, and the words on the little sign said, "God bless America, 90 days same as cash." And I just thought, wow, they're almost making those two things seem like they're together, right? 90 days same as cash is a uniquely patriotic idea. And that's probably not the case, but that's what this store was trying to sell you on. Again, though, if you're making an ad that is patriotic or has this nationalistic kind of vibe to it, remember, if your product's global, you got to be careful, because other people aren't going to share that culture, right? So yeah, the Molson and Labatt's "I Am Canadian," that probably worked really well in Canada. It probably made some people decide in Canada, hey, instead of buying Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser and all of that, let's honor Canada and go out and buy Molson. But certainly the people in the United States probably didn't have that same desire. There wasn't anything uniquely Canadian about people in the United States that desired to buy Molson over Budweiser. And in fact, people talk about Budweiser, as if it is this great American product, right? It's a very American thing to drink a Budweiser, right? Also, sometimes the name, the things that you're talking about, they don't really translate that well culturally overseas. There's this old kind of legend that Coca-Cola, phonetically, when you said it in some dialect of Chinese, some different region where it had a different dialect, Coca-Cola was actually, the phrase meant a taxidermied horse, a female horse stuffed with wax, is what Coca-Cola was supposed to mean phonetically if you said it or heard it said in that dialect. A study has found that 57% of the population has translated an American ad incorrectly. So take that into account as well, that our products don't necessarily culturally translate that well overseas either. So we'll stop here, and in class we'll watch some examples of all these videos, and we'll talk about some of your favorite videos and things like that. We'll also probably have an assignment. You may get an email about that, but we'll set another assignment up that deals with advertising. But I will see you all in class.